The story begins with Kazuya, a simp overlord who is dumped by his girlfriend after a month of dating. To help cure his depression, he pulls a low testosterone move by browsing through a girlfriend renting site, where he rents a girlfriend named Chizuru Mitsuhara. The two meet up at a cafe where Chizuru ends up exceeding his expectations, causing him to be stricken by her good looks. As they continue their date, our simp actually impresses her with some fish facts. They also get to hold hands at the end of the day, so I guess it was worth it to him. When Kazuya gets home, he starts looking up reviews about Chizuru and gets disappointed by realizing it's all an act. Who would have guessed? Regardless, he still ends up paying for a second date where he chooses to mope around about it all being fake. He then blows up at her in public, causing Chizuru to finally remind him that he's the one paying her to be a rental girlfriend. Ouch. Kazuya is then saved by the bell as he's called to the hospital due to his grandmother getting hospitalized once again. Chizuru ends up tagging along with him, and even though Kazuya's own family is shocked to see his new girlfriend with him upon visiting, Kazuya's grandmother is so delighted that he finally brought a girl, so she quickly decides to go tell the other elderly woman about the two. But Chizuru panics as she reveals that one of them is actually her own grandmother. The two end up having to hide in another room, causing them to be in a compromising position. Also, a third person rises up as well, if you get my drift. Eventually, Kazuya is driven crazy and gets kicked by Chizuru, causing the two to end up getting caught by the grandmas. After leaving the hospital, Kazuya reveals to Chizuru that his grandma's one wish is for him to find someone nice like her. He ends up leaving a 5-star review and is prepared to move on with his love life, but that is stopped short when he and Chizuru find out that they both attend the same college. Chizuru runs away after Kazuya and his friends encounter each other, and once the coast is clear, she pulls him into a room telling him to not say anything about her and her job to anyone. The next morning, they also find out they are next door neighbors. Kazuya then receives a video call from his grandmother informing him that she's coming over to visit and she wants Chizuru to be there as well. As a result, Kazuya begs Chizuru to help him out, but of course she refuses and pulls out the terms of service in his face. When Kazuya's grandmother finally comes over, she sits down to wait for Chizuru to show up. He then decides to just come clean, but right before he tells her, his grandma guesses that the two broke up because he's sloppy and messy, causing her to leave him. When Chizuru hears of their conversation, she decides to save him and arrives at Kazuya's apartment with a cooked meal. She then activates her girlfriend mode, causing his grandma to fall more in love with her. At the end of the day, Chizuru agrees to be Kazuya's girlfriend for only 1 hour every Wednesday, only when his grandma visits. A week later, during school, Kazuya randomly encounters his ex, Mami, for the first time since they broke up. He ends up just staring at her, not knowing what to do, so his friends tease him. Kazuya then goes with Chizuru to meet his grandmother. After visiting her, they're spotted by his friends where they call Chizuru an S-tier hottie, causing him to randomly blurt out that she's his girlfriend. He's then pulled over to a corner where the first thing his friends ask him if he's already done the deed with her. He's flustered and says no, but the two end up getting invited over to a drinking session. At the session, it turns out that Mami is there as well, causing a massive mood swing between the parties. Mami then pipes up and says for everybody to stop being so awkward, as she's moved on as well. She then continues to start making fun of Kazuya in front of everyone, until Chizuru angrily calls her out. As Chizuru stands up for him, Kazuya ends up defending his ex instead, causing Chizuru to take her leave. And once the session is over, Kazuya is seen walking home alone, until Mami shows up and asks him if he wants to head to her place. When Kazuya asks Mami about her new boyfriend, she claims that she lied because he brought such a pretty girlfriend with him. She then falsely claims that her brother is at her place, so he's cocked and they can't even go there. Unfortunately, he's still into her and attempts to shoot a shot by asking her if she wants to head to his place instead. She declines, and she only starts patting him on the head. Poor guy, man. However, when she insults Chizuru, Kazuya mans up and defends her before he runs off to head home to apologize. When he arrives at his apartment, Kazuya apologizes to Chizuru for what happened earlier. She tells him that she understands since she's just a rental girlfriend, and if he ever needs her, she'll always be there for him. Sometime later, Kazuya and his friends head to the beach located within the Izu Peninsula. There, Mami's true self is revealed even more, and when she's alone, she's shown to be very jealous of Kazuya's and Chizuru's relationship. She even vows to make sure that she'll destroy their relationship. Later, and Mami attempts to bring up all the good times she and Kazuya had when they were dating. This causes Kazuya to attempt to reveal the truth to her, but Chizuru and her friends randomly show up at the same beach under her school guise. Luckily, their friend group does not end up realizing it's Chizuru. Fast forward to a shopping trip. Kazuya runs into Chizuru and pulls her into the bathroom. The two start to argue when Kazuya implies that she might have feelings for him, but their arguing draws Mami's attention. Chizuru then quickly changes and pretends she and Kazuya are on a date. Later, while in a corner by herself, Mami is seen to be extra angry. Chizuru then attempts to leave, but she's forced to stay, causing Kazuya to brag to his friends about how they met. Meanwhile, when he goes swimming, Mami pulls a clumsy move and strikes to kiss him. While they're kissing, he starts recalling the first time they met and all the fun that they had together. But he's confused as to what's happening, only for her to tell him to just act like nothing happened. When they return to the group, he receives a call from his grandmother, informing him that she'll be discharged from the hospital next week. After the call ends, Kazuya decides to not deceive anyone anymore. So he announces to the group that they've been planning to break up for a while. Shocked by what he said, Kibe then gets up and hits Kazuya, angry that Kazuya is thinking with his wood instead of his brain. Chad Kibe also calls out Mami for leading on a guy she just dumped. Afterwards, Kazuya runs into Chizuru, who tells him that he did nothing wrong. Now, with both her grandmas being discharged the following week, he decides to book her one final time before they let everyone know that they actually broke up. Later, Best Bro Kibe catches up with Chizuru to have a conversation about Kazuya. He tells her that he's known Kazuya since they were little, and despite his flaws, Kazuya is actually a good guy at heart. He then gives her a couple of ferry tickets, asking her to give Kazuya another chance. And on that ferry, Kazuya receives a call from Mami. While he's on the phone, a delirious Chizuru falls overboard, and after he hears what happened from the other passengers, Kazuya finally does a king move and immediately goes after her to save her. While Kazuya is able to rescue Chizuru, he ends up in a bad shape after they return to the surface. A distraught Chizuru then saves his life by performing CPR, and when he's discharged from the hospital, his friends give him a ride home. At their apartment, Kazuya tells Chizuru that he already made an arrangement for next week, and he will place the payment in her postbox. He also apologizes to her once more for all that has happened. Inside his apartment, Kazuya finally realizes that he has developed romantic feelings towards Chizuru. Now, in every anime like this, we get a hot springs episode. And once they arrive at the hot springs, Kazuya learns that Chizuru's grandmother is also staying at the resort as well. Kazuya and Chizuru then find out that they are sharing the same room thanks to their Cupid grandmothers. After they confront their grandmas, Chizuru decides she might as well enjoy the situation. Why not, right? When she leaves to take a bath, she runs into Kazuya's grandmother, who explains that it's the anniversary of her husband's passing. And when she returns to her room, Chizuru enjoys herself and she allows Kazuya to stay with her. If you got this far, leave some love. As they are laying down, Kazuya tells Chizuru that while he believes he's a problematic client, he wants to keep continually renting her. Chizuru agrees and agrees that he can rent her just for a little while longer. A few days later, Kazuya announces to his friends that he and Chizuru are still dating. After going out on another date, Kazuya and Chizuru run into Kuryabashi, who claims to finally have a girlfriend, so he then sets up a double date. While he's alone, Kazuya runs into a girl with a blue ribbon. The following Saturday at a free climbing gym, Kuribayashi introduces his girlfriend named Ruka Sarashina, the same girl Kazuya previously ran into. Later, Ruka invites Chizuru upstairs, and while they're alone, Ruka asks her if she's a rental girlfriend, but she denies it. When Kuribayashi goes to the bathroom, Ruka asks Kazuya and Chizuru to kiss so that they can prove it to her. So, she ends up pretending to kiss Kazuya, but Ruka is not convinced. He then pretends that Chizuru has to leave to visit her grandmother. Afterwards, Kazuya follows Kuribayashi and Ruka. When Kuribayashi drops Ruka off, Kazuya is still concerned that she might reveal the truth to Kuribayashi, so he follows her inside the station. When he does, she confronts him.
The story continues when our simp overlord keeps following Ruka, asking her to not reveal that Chizuru is actually a rental girlfriend, but Ruka guesses he rented her for shallow reasons. Kazuya then explains why he rented her, but Ruka just gets frustrated, causing her to run away. She then falls down a flight of stairs but is saved by Kazuya. After the fall, Kazuya begs her and Ruka finally reveals that she's a rental girlfriend as well. Later, Kazuya tells Chizuru this, much to her annoyance. At the campus, Ruka shows up while Kazuya is waiting for Kirabayashi. As they are hiding, Ruka checks her phone, but it makes a noise, so he ends up finding them. Ruka then thanks him for renting her, which shocks him, causing him to run. As he couldn't find Kirabayashi, Kazuya goes home and talks with Chizuru over the door. He explains the situation, but then is shocked to see Ruka showing up. She explains that Kirabayashi told her he lives here. Seeing that Chizuru is his neighbor, Ruka gets frustrated, wondering how far their relationship stretches. She then promises to not tell anyone about Chizuru being a rental, only if he was out with her. Turns out, Ruka has fallen for our simp. Later, Kazuya tells Chizuru that even though he finds her cute, he can't date her due to the bro code. Chizuru then tells Kazuya to go out with Ruka, as she does actually look like she really likes him, and just leaving her on her own can be problematic. As Kazuya starts spending time with Ruka, he completely stops renting Chizuru. However, he finds it quite hard to keep up with Ruka, as she is super clingy. However, there is still the fear she may expose his fake relationship with Chizuru. Ruka then visits Kazuya at the college, but he tells her not to show up there as he doesn't want Kirabayashi to know. Afterwards, Kazuya starts to miss Chizuru, but he finds out she's booked for Christmas. On the next day, he sees her all dressed up meeting a boy. As he gets worried that he may be her boyfriend, he starts following them. He ends up watching a movie with them, eating lunch, and hears that they will eat at his place. He then decides he lost her. He then surprisingly runs into Yumi, but his phone rings. He then talks about Chizuru, stating that he will take her measurements later. Now convinced he's her boyfriend, but having bad intentions, Kazuya decides to keep following them. In front of a Christmas tree, he sees Yumi is about to kiss her and interrupts them. However, Chizuru explains that he was just fixing her earring and they aren't a couple. Having no choice, Chizuru explains that she's an actress and that Yumi is another actor from her school. Yumi also explains he was trying to recommend Chizuru to a director he knows. After Yumi leaves, Kazuya reveals that he's been stalking them and thinking that Yumi may be a scumbag. He just couldn't let it go. As he starts to feel bad, she suddenly gives him a present. A phone case. She wanted a boy's opinion and Yumi was only free today. She also explains this isn't a present, but a token of apology. Kazuya then starts crying as this is the first time a girl had given him something for Christmas. Kazuya is excited for his new case, thinking he's the only one that got a gift from a rental. However, he finds out other guys got presents as well. The next day, he complains to Chizuru, causing her to ask him if he likes her, but he declines. When returning home, a wild Ruka appears and is annoyed he went out with Chizuru and forces Kazuya to go on a date with her. On their date, Kazuya can't stop thinking of Chizuru. Meanwhile, Ruka blindfolds him and takes him to a love hotel. There, he sees Ruka takes off her socks, so he panics and attempts to run, but Ruka stops him. Kazuya again explains everything about his grandma, and Ruka tells him he can't keep up with the lie forever, so she should introduce her instead as his real girlfriend. However, Kazuya reminds her that his grandma really likes Chizuru. She counters by saying she's ready for sexy time, so Kazuya runs into the bathroom. When he re-enters the room, Ruka has already left. During the new year, Kazuya takes Chizuru to meet his grandma and parents. But, to everyone's surprise, Ruka randomly shows up. Chizuru and Kazuya then panic, but they introduce her as a friend. Ruka quickly starts to flatter Nagomi. However, when Grandma Nagomi asks how they know each other, he explains Ruka is Chizuru's friend, but Ruka states he's his girlfriend. Afterwards, Nagomi starts clapping Kazuya for cheating on Chizuru and two-timing her. She tells him to either cut ties with them or break up with Ruka. Kazuya then explains that Ruka is a pathological liar, but usually is a nice girl and Chizuru is too nice to cut her. Nagomi believes him as she doubts that two girls would ever like him. Oh wow, Grandma. During the dinner, Ruka feeds Kazuya. However, neither Nagomi or his parents react. She realizes something is strange and calls him elsewhere to talk. The family then tell Chizuru that she's way too nice as she manages to deal with Ruka. Elsewhere, Kazuya reveals that he told his grandma that Ruka is a pathological liar and she wants to fix it, but he stops her as they will think he's two-timing them instead. After dinner, Nagomi and Ruka end up being alone. Ruka plans on telling her everything and tries to convince herself to do it. However, Nagomi states that she's glad she met Ruka, as she's a friend of Chizuru. Ruka then realizes that Nagomi doesn't want a girlfriend-in-law, but Chizuru herself. Chizuru then comes and is glad that she found them. They then decide to head to a shrine. Meanwhile, Chizuru tells Kazuya that everything is okay, so he thanks Ruka for spilling their secret and apologizes. Unfortunately for Kazuya, Ruka starts working at the same karaoke bar. As he thinks his luck can't get worse, Yoshiaki and his other friends arrive at his workplace and mock him. Yoshiaki tells him about Kirabayashi acting weird. Kazuya figures it's due to Ruka and asks her to apologize, but she thinks that may only complicate things as she haven't worked as a rental since they started dating. He then comes up with an idea and goes to Chizuru to ask her for a favor. The next day, he arranges a meeting with Kirabayashi, however, instead of Kazuya, Chizuru arrives and introduces herself as Kirabayashi's rental girlfriend. He can't believe it and checks online, confirming that she's indeed a rental. When heading to go inside an amusement park, he decides to bounce, but seeing that Chizuru would go alone, he decides to stay with her. While spending the whole day with her, Kirabayashi misses having a girlfriend and expresses his desire to really get one. In the evening, he intends to pay Chizuru, but she states it's been paid already. He then sees Kazuya watching them and Chizuru leaves them to talk for a bit. Hearing the whole story, Kirabayashi starts laughing at Kazuya, but feels relieved. Later, Kirabayashi asks Chizuru if a rental could actually fall for a client. She doesn't give him a definitive answer, which makes him start to believe she had fallen for Kazuya already. The next day, Kazuya receives a note from Chizuru asking him to meet her at the balcony. He starts imagining of what it may be, but Chizuru asks him to rent a friend of her named Sumi. She's recently just started as a rental girlfriend, but she's quite shy and clients complain. Chizuru then asks him about Mami, and Kazuya explains they haven't talked since the beach incident and is no longer sure that he still loves her. Sumi explains her daily routine to introduce herself. She's usually booked twice a week, but she doesn't like her girlfriend mode and is quite shy during her dates. She looks up to Chizuru for advice, and Chizuru states that she needs to be more confident, but she's also sure there are clients that will love her for who she is. The next day, Kazuya waits for Sumi and sees a girl hiding behind a column. He figures that's her and she confirms. As they go for coffee, he realizes how shy she really is as she doesn't even say anything. He takes her to bowling, but she slips and falls. Kazuya then asks her why she wants to be a rental girlfriend, but she uses gestures to explain that she wants to change. When Kazuya returns with some drinks, he goes in after he sees 3 guys hitting on her and takes Sumi away. As they walk, the guys start trash-talking. Sumi then apologizes, but Kazuya explains that he's used to it when he's with Chizuru. As they continue on their date, he's surprised to see Mami with Sumi. Kazuya starts to panic, but Mami asks Sumi if she can give them a few minutes to talk. Before leaving, she tells Kazuya that she won't tell Chizuru about it. As their date ends, Kazuya tells Sumi that she can take it nice and slow, and it was obvious she was really trying to have a fun date, so he believes she can totally be a rental. Sumi later calls Chizuru, informing her how her date was and that he saved her from some punks. At home, Mami can't stop thinking of Kazuya, so she searches her name and finds out she's a rental girlfriend. Later, Chizuru thanks him for taking out Sumi as she really enjoyed her time. She also explains that she's considering stopping as a rental girlfriend as she might get an acting role. Kazuya is sad to hear that, but thanks her for everything she had done for him. The next day, Chizuru has a date with a customer named Maya. However, the customer is revealed to be Mami. The next day, Kazuya agrees to go on a date with Ruka. Later at their job, just as he is about to ask her to be his girlfriend, he spots Mami and Chizuru heading into one of the rooms. Mami attempts to pay Chizuru, but she refuses. She then reveals how long she has known about Chizuru's occupation. When Chizuru wonders why Mami is doing this, she simply ignores her. Meanwhile, Kazuya finds out that Mami knows the true nature of his and Chizuru's relationship. Once they leave, he fakes an illness so he can follow them. When he finds them, Kazuya overhears Chizuru tell a skeptical Mami that he is her boyfriend. She then asks Mami if she has ever thought that he was truly the love of her life. However, Mami gives her a vague answer. At night, Kazuya thanks Chizuru for speaking up for him. But when she apologizes to him for not getting him a girlfriend, he confesses that he actually wants her. When questioned, he reluctantly says that he meant as a rental girlfriend, not want. Inside her apartment, Chizuru becomes flustered. The next morning, everyone is back out doing their own thing.